Okay, hey.
Hey,
You doing okay?
yeah, doing great.
Good, good.
Get to see you 2 days in this week.
I know, right? Just here 2 days in one week. I saw Nancy earlier, had to get some paperwork notarized, so we met at the bank and it was just bizarre because it's been so long since I've seen her in person.
Oh,
It was very strange. Because normally we would hug, but
I know.
yeah, yeah. So we are back together to do part two of our conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or part three.
This is just the snippet in the long conversation of our lives.
Yep.
So I'm just trying to think of how to get started because I can edit some of what we did before with this. So I
Yeah.
know there were some things that I think you wanted to clarify or maybe add to. So we could just start there with, what you'd like to.
I was thinking more like what I would say is whatever I shared with you and is based on my experiences in the past
Mhm.
and my interaction with few people. It's not the representation of the whole of all American people, because my best friends are American. And as much as I would also hold an opinion about Indians.
Mhm.
When I feel, they being more stuck in their own ways without being listening and open to the other perspective, but they think that their perspective is the only perspective. And so then I just wanted to make very clear that my experiences has been based on the people that I interacted, but it does not represent all Americans. It's
Right.
the segment of people that still are in their own perspective and are not open to seeing and listening to what the other might be thinking, feeling, and what the other's perspectives are. And there is that whole feeling that, oh, my perspective is the right perspective, and not having that enough openness and sensitivity and compassion to even take the time to listen from that openness and listening to understand rather than listening to influence or push my own agenda.
I, I think that, you know, that's very common with everyone, especially in this day and age, that we have our own point of view and it's become so complicated to just have a normal conversation with people, even family members that think
Mhm.
differently. It's just it's just very different than, or at least I feel very differently than I did this time last year and having conversations about anything. Now there's a guard because people are so, including myself, so
Yeah,
emotional.
yeah, yeah. I think, a lot of defensiveness in that I want to defend my own point rather than saying, or appreciating the differences and what we can create from those differences.
If anything, I mean, I think a lot of what our work has been bringing people together and celebrating differences. but things are different right now. There's an
Exactly.
unwillingness, I think, from a lot of people to listen, to be open to hearing a different perspective. And when I find myself doing that, I think I'm not helping myself or anyone around me if I am in my head thinking my view is the right view, because the person I'm talking to, it sounds like they're thinking the exact same thing, and so we're not going to get anywhere. So I try to be really conscious of listening and trying to understand that perspective. You know, we all have our filters, we all have our life experiences that make us think a certain way or influence the way we respond and react. And I just find it very challenging. I mean, have you had any situations recently where you know, consciously made that effort to listen to someone, and they had a different point of view, and how how did that go?
I think, this is even more common with our own families. Even as you were referring to, it is so different. May it be political view, maybe it concerning COVID-19, physical distancing or wearing mask. And I think, to me, it is really important to allow people to express themselves. And I actually intentionally have to make an effort to stay connected to them rather than to what they're saying. As long as I have that connection with them, I think I can stay connected and curious and not get into that place of judgment.
That's
And
correct.
yeah, and that is very easy to lose, because even within our families, sometimes, I just want to say my piece. And so I have to ask myself, you know, do I want to be right, or do I want to be kind?
That's beautiful.
You know, what is it that I want? I mean, what is the point of being right if I've lost everybody in the bargain? You know,
Yeah, that's
even with the racism, I'm like, do we want to be right, or do we want to connect and create a different type of culture and learning and connections?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're probably a lot more emotionally mature than I am to be able to. I mean, I try, but I find it difficult.
Don't get me wrongly. I have my moments too, but it's like, and that's where I feel the reflection is so important. Reflecting on my own way, how I interact, how I come across, and what is it that I want to convey, or what is the impact I want to have. You know, I lose it sometimes though.
Do you feel like it is something ingrained in you that you were born with, that kindness, that interest in learning about others, the tolerance, or do you feel like it's something that you learned?
I think for me, it is something that I am still learning. For many people, it comes more automatically. I have to make an attempt and effort
Hmm.
and to stay connected, stay on, like, uh, even as I'm talking, I have to bring it back. So, what is the impact I want to have? What is it that I want to convey? Do I want to go with the big group, or that think one way, or do I want to bring a different perspective and different way of being rather than trying to fit in?
Right. Have you had situations where people have responded negatively to you if you're in a group and people are going one way and then you maybe try to show a different perspective?
Oh, yeah. And people have said, oh, that is being idealist.
Hmm.
And I'm like, I would rather want to be an idealist than to go with the crowd,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because something that I know, I feel it is it's not being optimistic, but it is being optimist, the optimism with some sort of realism that
Mm-hmm.
is for me, that is within, and expressing it sometimes doesn't come the way I feel it in my heart. It comes differently.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been called Pollyannish. You know the phrase?
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
And I'm like, well, it's who I am. I'd rather look on the bright side and at
Exactly.
least try to make things better because I think if we, I mean, my partner is a pessimist through and through, and it can be exhausting at times. And I think, well, if everyone were pessimistic like that, we would get nowhere. We would make no improvements. So we have to dream a little and see an ideal direction to help drive, improvements, I think.
Yeah, and Leah, even if someone calls you Pollyannish, that's okay,
Yeah.
because you have you bring in your imagination, your creativity. It's not we think being realistic is the way to go. What happens to your imagination? can
Right.
can we even take a moment and imagine what 2021 is going to be like?
Whew,
you
I
know
do. Do you? I dream of what I hope it's
I,
going to be like.
yeah, I mean, that is where we create that different type of energy and we put it out there.
Yeah.
And, what harm is there to doing that?
Right.
They always say, you aim at the moon.
Mhm.
If you miss moon, you will at least get the stars.
Right.
But if you're aiming the clouds, you might get nowhere.
Yeah. Right. Right. Well, and I think there are a lot of people who probably feel that way because if there weren't, there wouldn't be as many protests as there are. There wouldn't be as many people fighting for change, fighting for the ideal that our society ought to be. So, so
Yeah.
what are your thoughts about 2021? What are you
I,
envisioning as far as?
And I'm envisioning a different type of world than we have, because things are not going to, even though we might want the things to go back to what the way it was, it's not going to be the way it was,
Never, never.
and hopefully it will not.
Right.
And because it's like it's going to be like not living with aliveness, but it's almost like living. If you're 90 years old, then you're living the 90 years again, and it's
Mhm.
again and again, rather than living every year differently with more joy, more fun, and more of like how I want the world to be. So
Mhm.
that is way I am looking at it. And
Right.
I'm feeling this disruption that the COVID-19 has brought.
Yeah.
It is something that we could not even have imagined.
No. And it's exhausting. It's draining. I mean, for me, it's just draining.
It is because we used to a different way of being, right? And everything, and any change that we brought incrementally,
Right.
little by little. And this has totally thrown us off our feet.
Yeah, I was talking with a friend who we were talking about our emotions and how we're both grumpy and on, on edge. Our emotions are kind of all over the place, and I'll dry at the drop of a hat. I mean, it's an intense situation. And I was thinking about it as we were talking, and I thought, the reality is that I'm 51. How old am I? I think I'm 52. I'm in my 50s, and I've known the world or my reality a certain way my entire life, and it has been upended. And so I'm grieving that. I don't want it to go back the way it was, because I think that a lot there's a lot of things that need to be improved, and I think this is an opportunity for us to reshape the future that we want to have. But that doesn't mean I'm not grieving what I've known my whole life and what was comfortable, because I knew it. It was a safe, comfortable place. And
Yeah.
so I think a lot of people are grieving, and that grief we experience, the anger and the sadness and denial and all of those emotions. Um,
And grieving is a part of our lives.
yeah,
And even I was even you were talking about emotions, even emotions, as long as we allow them to be without trying to fix them,
yes,
it's going to get us the best result. It is the allowing. It is only when we are resisting them, then it becomes like a monster.
I agree wholeheartedly. And I think for our society, it's been the case that people are supposed to fit in a box and act a certain way,
Hmm.
and really bury their emotions. And I've seen how damaging that is to our children. It was
Hmm.
damaging to, me and my siblings, that you can't be overly emotional. Boys aren't supposed to cry. Don't act this way. It's not ladylike. It's not becoming. All those silly judgments. And really trying to help people understand that our emotions are who we are. I mean, it makes up who we are, and that we have to experience them and accept them and appreciate that we can feel them responsibly. Um, but yeah, I think I agree with you wholeheartedly that we need to learn, we need to be able to express them to get through all the different situations that we're facing.
Right. And even like coming back to COVID-19 or even the whole racial issue, the more we are in the place of resistance, it's more difficult it's going to get to the other side. We have to allow what is and see what is it that I am here to do. I think to me it feels like it is each one of our responsibility.
Hmm.
We cannot feel that there is one savior. We have the responsibility. We all are saviors. We have to work together.
Right,
And it's the collective, and it's collective energy that we create when we are working together to bring about the change without trying to make the other side wrong.
right.
And because if you really go to see, both the sides are doing their best, which where I stand, I might not see the best that you're doing, and where you stand you might not see what I am doing, and or the best that I am doing. We can, and that is when we are in that place of finger pointing. She's not doing enough, or this one is not doing enough, they should do more. And so in leadership we always just talk about turning the mirror inward. I think it's the whole thing came from Peter Senge, turning the mirror inward and looking, what is it that I am doing? How am I contributing? And what type of energy I am putting out. Sometimes we say, oh, I was so calm and I was really being nice. But is that the energetically, is that what we are conveying, or are we trying doing nice but not being nice?
Right. And I think the other complexity is that we can have an intention in what we're doing and saying, and another person can misinterpret, perceive it a different way. And, communication, I joke with like my partner, it's like we both speak English, but we don't communicate in the same language a lot of times. So it's just challenging.
It is challenging, and it is challenging when you know each of us are trying to hold our own agenda and push our own agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Could we even for a moment put our agenda aside and connect with this person and say, help me to understand, where am I not getting you? Are
Right.
we Do we have the willingness? And some of us might have the willingness but might not have the tools.
True. Yeah.
You know?
So you grew up in India. Did you, just out of curiosity, how was um, growing up, as a child, how were emotions handled in your family?
Oh, the same way it is being handled in most of the families. If you cried, often they would, I mean, initially somebody would comfort you, and then if it happened too often, they would almost say, oh, now the next thing is going to happen is it's going to cry.
Uh,
And then, so they would say, it's almost like then you were labeled as a crybaby.
mm, oh, the
Or
same
they,
thing.
they they would say, hey, grow up,
Yeah,
you know.
suck it up, kind of
Yeah,
thing. Yeah.
yeah. We all have the same feeling, or we also are suffering. So
Yeah.
what's special about you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder if there are cultures that handle emotions better than other cultures, because certainly we can learn a lot from other cultures in different aspects. I think about the American culture, and I don't even like saying American culture because there's North America and South America, but in the United States, um, I we don't grow up with, say, necessarily, we don't grow up with music being embedded in our culture. Now, there are musical families where the parents might play music, but there's not a creative tradition that's embedded in U.S. society like there is in a lot of other cultures. So I wish
Yeah,
there were.
yeah. I think one thing that I must say, at least in US now, there is that great consciousness
Hmm.
and a more openness towards creating a little bit of, a lot more we talk about even emotional intelligence, resilience, and you know, my hope and desire is that we take it a little more further than what just with regards to functioning well at work
Yeah,
or in the society, but if more functioning well within the societies, because emotional intelligence can be just, you're able to manage your emotion, you have the awareness, and but then how you're managing it more to do with work, but how can I take it in all of my life, you know? how even with the emotion that might be coming to myself with whatever my own baggage is, how to be compassionate with that. And so that, the more authentic we are with ourselves, the more authentic we are going to be in our communities and in our societies.
That's, yeah, definitely. And I think we've talked before about embedding that kind of education in schools for younger children. And I mean, I have teenagers, so I have seen firsthand how complicated it is. I mean, I don't know what happened when I was a kid. And even my oldest daughter, who's now in her late 20s, she had some depression, but we didn't even have the awareness that short time ago that of how to handle, I guess, the different emotions that teenagers feel. But um, you know, most of us as adults don't know how to handle our emotions. So parents aren't necessarily able to help their children through those challenging situations. And it shouldn't all be on the school to educate children about this. But it would be really beautiful to have a more holistic approach to education.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. And I think that's what my hope and desire is, that um, we focus on our young generation, so that they get it. So once they get it, I think there will be more impact on the next generation. So if we can start this right at the school. That's why we used to say, leadership is best at the age of 10. So
Right.
how important it is to bring it more in the schools, to help them to deal, not also recognize they have values, and sometimes there is a conflict because my values and your values are different, and how can we work together in spite of a difference in values without sacrificing my values, but saying uh, staying aligned to my values, and also honoring the value of others, as long as the values is not that harming somebody.
Right, right, right. That's where it can get sticky, right? Where if
Yeah,
it's a,
yeah. And to be able to recognize that, and to address it in a way from the place of connection, from the place of kindness and compassion.
yeah.
Yeah. My desire for the schools is really for younger kids, is that, and especially now with the whole racial issue,
Oh,
how
yeah.
can we really not just teach our kids, but even the teachers, to be sensitive and open and accepting of each other, and being transparent. Okay. And for me, the transparency really is going to help us,
Hmm.
because the more we are we if we try to defend ourselves, we are going to continue with the same stuff.
Hmm.
But more vulnerable we are, we're giving the permission for others to be vulnerable, so that we are really connecting and being able to understand each other, rather than try to make others or myself wrong. I think that is where that whole defensiveness is. We try to protect. What are we protecting? In
Right.
the bargain, we are losing everyone and ourselves and everyone.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think um, when we're talking about young children and teaching them how to be vulnerable, I think that's also a really great opportunity to recognize where there may be people who are bullies, because as soon as that vulnerability shows, the bully mentality pounces. And that would be an excellent way to be able to sort of identify that bully mentality and then help that child to address their own emotions and that insecurity and all of the things that are happening within them that are creating that behavior.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many positives to what you're
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah. And the whole bulliness comes because some of those needs are not met, even when they have been vulnerable. Probably they were bullied too,
Right,
and so it's a learned behavior sometimes.
definitely, definitely.
So yeah.
Yeah,
uh, I feel there's this whole COVID and racial unrest has created so much opportunity for us to heal
yeah,
if we are willing.
right. And I think that what I see is people that are like-minded who feel that we're at a pivotal point and there's the opportunity to make change. I feel like people are that sort of concept is gelling and people are coming together even more. And it started, I think, with the protests. That's where it started. And I think that's been like the foundation for envisioning a completely new future for
Yeah,
ourselves,
yeah,
a better future. It's just getting from here to there is going to be interesting.
yeah. And I feel also the means that we use to get from here to there is also important. We can do it at the cost of, it can be like, in order for me to win, you have to lose.
Right.
It has to be, how can we create this whole the whole project as a win-win rather than win-lose? How can we come together and connect and be a community, where we might have not, maybe we have not been the best example for the rest of the world, but this here is our opportunity to be that example, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what else would you like to talk about?
I think just that I feel so strongly that each one of us can create something different rather than what we have been creating. And it is the responsibility is for each one of us to do our own share. And it can be in small ways, how we interact with each other, how we connect with the person next door or my colleague at work. And I think, to bring in, and when I was in a coaching school, they always started every session saying, every individual is naturally creative, resourceful, and whole,
Hmm. Yeah,
and nothing broken, nothing to fix, but plenty of room for development. And I totally feel this is what we have to do.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that. I'm gonna steal that. I'm gonna
yeah.
use
Yeah, then, in order for me, then it also reflects in more deeply and more authentically. Am I seeing myself as naturally creative, resourceful, and whole? Or am I seeing myself broken or lacking something and I need fixing? Then I am going to see you in the same, with same lenses.
hmm
I'm not going to see you differently. And for that also, we need that deep curiosity. We can go with our assumption because a lot of time things do not turn out the way we want because we go with our own assumption, and then we want different results. So,
Yeah.
yes, I think it is Einstein who said, uh, we cannot solve the problem from the same mindset that it created from. Of course, I paraphrase. It's not exactly said like that. So
No,
we have, yeah,
but
yeah,
it makes sense. It makes sense. We have to rethink things. We have to look at what's going on from a new perspective to be able to implement change. I mean, at least
right.
that's what I heard when you said that. That's how I interpret what you said. Do
Yeah.
you think that, when we're talking about connecting with people and making change, and um, we're supposed to stay home and wear masks and social distance, and, so do you have ideas of what some of the action steps to making change look like while we're still in this pandemic, which we have no idea how long it's going to last because, well, not to get into because we know we don't know how long it's going to last or whether there's going to be a vaccine that's going to work well enough to, let us move forward in a way that we can interact in person.
One of the thought that, or the way I'm looking at this is like it feels it in a way it feels like we are physically isolating, but we are not emotionally isolated.
Right.
We can always connect, and there is the flip side of it. Right now I feel I can do anything anywhere in the world because the Zoom and all this technology has made everything possible. And of course, it will take little time to adjust to it because it's the new normal. It's not like before you got onto the plane and got physically in their space and you were able to talk. But now, if you look at it, you don't even have to get out of your bedroom. You can reach whoever you want
Yeah.
as long as there is the whole technology piece wherever you want to reach. I mean it is simplified to such an extent, Leah. I feel like uh, about 20 30 years ago, it was so difficult, especially when Lyndon was in US and I was in India. It
Mhm.
was so expensive. His phone bills used to be like $100 a month,
Can only
and just
imagine.
and each call would cost him 30-40 dollars, and the call was maybe half an hour call or
Yeah.
45 minutes. And now it doesn't even cost me a penny because with WhatsApp, I could reach anyone anywhere
Right.
without paying anything. So, those are some of the things because, they also say what you focus on grows. And if we focus on that physically, we can be in the same space or I can get here, there.
Mhm.
I mean, that is only going to bring us down. What you, so it's almost brings me to the other side, like the positive psychology. Focusing on gratitude that I am able to connect with the person so in another country completely, and not only connecting, it's not even like in the olden time I can be talking and seeing this person on WhatsApp, and we are not spending all that big bucks.
Yeah.
And so I feel that, it has made us life easier in a way, but
Mhm.
I think the intention has to be there, that whatever we do is we're doing it from that place of kindness, place of joy and gratitude,
Mhm.
and really wanting to connect rather than trying to push my agenda and getting you to buy into my agenda. Then, of course, we are going to continue doing what we have been always doing with no consciousness.
Yeah, yeah. I hear you. I think when you talk about being able to reach anybody in the world, it has this technology has really shrunk the world into a very manageable sort of concept of, when I was younger and we would talk on the phone, and you do, before we even had call waiting, you call somebody and the line is busy, you can't reach them. and
Hmm.
and calling someone in another country, I didn't, we didn't even know how to do that because of course we didn't know anyone in another country.
Right.
And it's insane how much the world has changed. And I mean, that was, I was in high school, so 40, 30, 40 years. And at the same time, there are a lot of people on the lower income bracket or who live in very rural areas who have no access. And for us trying to work with older adults, particularly those that are in skilled care, the access to technology is very limited. And then the ability, certainly for the residents to use it, is very limited, but even for the staff, so there is not only a discrepancy, um, or what is the word I'm trying to think of? You know, they're the underserved or the younger generation, that young group that doesn't have access to technology. The same is true for the older population. So our bookends in our society are really missing out in a lot of ways on this technology. And yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and that will take probably time, but and another, the flip side of that also, take a young population, the kids in the school,
Mhm.
all these kids who otherwise would have no access to laptops or
Mhm.
computers. Right now, everything being online, they are actually given the laptops. And so, it is really reaching to different population that I don't think, if it was not for COVID, they would probably some of them might have never owned a laptop for a very, very long time.
the 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 gap in there is they can have the tablet or the computer, but if they don't have access to the internet, they're still left out. So it's, having these situations where they're having to drive somewhere or somehow get transportation to access the internet. So there are a lot of challenges that I think we would have never known about
Yeah,
had the
yeah.
pandemic not happened. And so it's
Hmm.
really raised awareness about the inequality, you know, the number of people that don't have access or don't have the funds to have internet access. And yeah, it's just, I think we talked before about how our whole education system needs to be overhauled. This
Exactly.
is the start. Hopefully, this is the start of that happening.
Yeah, yeah. Because, yeah, even the not having internet, I remember, we were doing a program in India, and where we didn't have internet access.
Mhm.
But then, what they came up with, the little boxes, with the modem,
Uh-huh.
so you could access the internet. I think all this is where I feel there are tons of possibilities, and and we have to be creative to, and without this, that creativity would still stay dormant. Now, this is providing us the opportunity to be creative
Right.
and to find the creative solution, because there are solutions, but as long as we focus on the problem,
Mhm.
of course we don't see the solution.
Right. And hopefully there will be many positive solutions for healthcare that come out of this. Because
E-
that's the other area,
exactly.
yeah, that desperately needs to be improved. So,
Yeah, and I think that is one thing. I think for US is a big thing because other countries have it. I mean, a lot of other countries have it. Canada, UK,
yeah.
and we call ourselves, we are number one, and with superpowers and everything. Oh, how about bringing making all of us number one as a country, rather than making only few people as number one, is not going to cut it,
Right.
because then we have, I mean, you could Leah, you could have had the best of insurance, medical insurance policy, but what does it benefit you if I am, who have no insurance, is affected, and I come in contact, or not even contact, I'm in contact with somebody else because I have to go get my groceries, and I'm giving it to, and you have to go to the same grocery store, and you're going to get it with your
Yeah.
beautiful package. What's the
Yeah.
point?
Well, and I think we could probably talk for another hour about that and about people not wearing masks and not understanding or not believing the science. And, you know, it just goes on and on and on. And that's where
Uh,
it starts to get tiring because it's interesting because I have all these thoughts, like what we're talking about right now. I'll go through this sort of process in my head, and I think of all the good, wonderful possibilities, and then some like, oh, this negative thing comes in. It's like, oh gosh, but then we could do this, and then it's okay, positive, possibilities, and then so it's just this. I don't even know how to describe it. It's a roller coaster, I guess, of challenges and
mhm.
potential solutions and more challenges and hopes that things will get better and yeah.
I think hope without action also doesn't change anything, And I'm not saying that action is everybody need to go g- get on the bandwidth, but I'm doing my own share of
Uh-huh.
work, and doing everything to create a conscious community, and we can do that in our own little way, taking care of the environment.
Yeah, yeah, I think I agree with you that if every one of us takes the actions that we're able to take, within our means
Hmm.
to make improvements, to move the needle just a little bit, then collectively the move happens, the change happens.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, I was also thinking like Cometa, used to do all this gathering,
Hmm.
and of course with COVID you couldn't gather, but now I feel Cometa can reach a lot more people all over the world because it is done on Zoom. So,
Yeah,
it's not just then, focused, or it's not just a localized event now. Now it could be a event, anyone who's interested anywhere to create these communities and bring about the change, they can be part of it too.
yeah, yeah. I look forward to the Zoom tonight.
Yeah, yeah. I think you have to sign up
I
for this.
did. Yeah,
You did.
I'll be.
So
I
you got.
think I did. If I didn't, I'll do it right when we get off here. I meant to, but but I plan to be on tonight.
Yeah, I think tonight will be really good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I don't know if I'll be able to, because I have to take Sachi for another event that she has to be
yeah,
in. Yeah. So I'll try.
yeah,
I've registered, so we'll see.
yeah. All right. Well,
Or
any other thoughts to share?
I think nothing much, except that uh, it is really important for all of us to do our play our part from the place of really being kind and grateful, and focus on what we can do rather than focusing on what we can't, because what we can is a lot more than what we can't.
Agreed.
Yeah,
And this is what we teach when we go out into aging service communities. Focus on what each individual can do, because that's what matters.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Thanks,
thank you.
thanks, Leah, for all the work that you have been doing.
Oh, thank you, Philomena. Thanks for talking
Yeah,
with me today
yeah.
again. And we'll
Mm,
keep plugging along, doing our part.
yep.
All
Alrighty. You
right.
take care.
All right,
Yeah.
you too. Bye.
Bye bye.